Welcome to the S.E.M podcast. Jack and Zach are here once again tonight, and our guest is the famous Tyler Monteath. Tyler, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing really good. A few technical difficulties on my end tonight, but glad we finally got it going.
No, we can see your smiling face and hear your voice, which is all that matters.
Well,
What part
that's
of the world
good.
you calling in tonight from?
I am in Saratoga Springs, Utah.
Awesome. Well, very good. Well, Tyler, we didn't talk about this prior because of our technical difficulties, but have you been listening to the podcast?
Yeah, I've been listening to several episodes. I started listening to John Coons earlier today, but I got interrupted with, kids and sporting events and couldn't quite finish that one. But I've listened to several, and Elder Bonin, Andrew Bonin, was the one that reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want you to get on there and I want to hear your story." And, he told a story that I don't remember. There's so many stories I've heard that I'm just like, I do not remember any of that stuff happening. But I'm sure I'll tell some stories where people are like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that." So,
See, that's what this is
so
all about, reminding everybody. It's great.
oh yeah.
Well,
I was able to get together with Matt Fisler and Chad Bauckham the other day because this podcast stirred up all those memories. Like, oh man, I need to reach out to them, and found out that Chad and I are in the same state, and
wow.
just small world. And I was like, holy, we live super close to each other, and just
Wow.
small world.
That's amazing.
But haven't seen each other since the mission. So yeah.
We love those kind of stories.
Good.
We love those. Those are the best kind because, Jack and I have talked about it so many times. It's amazing how the memories of Scotland have helped us remember the friends from Scotland and everything beyond. It's, we have that brotherhood. So it's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just to remind you of the format, we'll talk pre-mission and your decision to serve, and then reaction of going to Scotland. Then we'll jump over, talk about life since you've been home, and then we'll go back through the mission. So I'll give the time to you, Tyler.
All right. Well, I actually grew up very close to where you live. I grew up in Littleton, Colorado.
Nice.
So yeah, I went to Columbine High School. That's kind of the claim to fame out there, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if that would be a good claim to fame, but so I was in 7th grade when all that stuff happened, and but yeah, loved my experience there. It was great growing up. Got in trouble just like every other teenage boy, and I've just been talking to other people. Glad social media didn't exist back then when we were growing up, because yeah. I'm glad a lot of the stuff I didn't get recorded. So, but yeah, I grew up in Colorado. I always played football and lacrosse, and I assumed I was going to play somewhere for football. I thought maybe I'd just go to Colorado or Colorado State. And then I went to a lacrosse camp at BYU my junior year, and the lacrosse coach approached me. He's like, "Hey, you want to come play for me?" And I was like, "Sure, but I can't get into school. My grades aren't good enough. There's no way I can get into BYU." And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that." So I guess he used to have 5 freebies that kids could get into school, and so he used one of those on me, and that got me out to BYU. And honestly, I didn't really ever have a desire to serve a mission. I know a lot of guys in here are like, "Oh yeah, typical story. I wanted to go," and I never really had that desire to go. And my young men's leader would call me a lot my freshman year, and, "Hey, when you putting in your papers? When you putting in your papers?" And I'm just like, I don't know, not really sure. Just kind of playing the push it off kind of a thing. And then finally, I told him, I was like, "Listen, I'm not going. I don't want to go. It's just not for me. I just don't want to. Please quit bugging me about it." And he did. He totally respected that. And me and him are really good. You might actually know him. His name's Dwayne Duffy. So he owns Metro Brokers out there in Littleton.
I have heard his name. Absolutely.
Yeah. So he
crazy.
He was just awesome in my life, so he's another realtor, and what got me interested in that path as well, which I can touch on later. But he was a big influence in my life. My dad passed away when I was 11, and so he was like one of the big ones that like helped like try to keep me on the straight and narrow, and, you know, just be a good influence in my life. But eventually I said, no, I'm not going. And he finally left me alone. And so I played and went to school through my junior year. So I was almost, I was 21 when this happened. It was the summer of, I don't remember what year it was. I was 21 that year. And I was sitting in church. And well, I got to backtrack. I was dating this girl, and my sister came to visit, and she's like, Tyler, what do you do in life? Like, what are you doing? What are you going to major in? And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just, playing lacrosse, going to school. And she's like, you better get your stuff together. You want to, she didn't say stuff, but, you better get your stuff together if you want to marry a girl like that. And I was just like, oh yeah, fun. I brushed it off, whatever. Like, and then like that Sunday at church, we were sitting in church, and I don't even know what the lesson was on or whatever. Zoned out, like just checking the box, being there at church. And I'm sitting on the back row, like where the accordion doors are. So like there's nobody behind me. And I just hear this voice that goes, Tyler, go on your mission. And I was like, I like looked over my shoulder because I'm like, who said that? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like just brushed it off. And then it said it again. And it goes like very, very like loving, but gentle. Tyler, go on your mission. And I was like, okay. Like, and I believe that was my dad's voice, like, Tyler, it's time, And so I didn't want to talk to my stake president at BYU because he didn't know me. So I ended up calling my stake president at home, good family friend. He's like, you know what, Tyler, like, come home. We'll get things sorted. We'll get your things going, get you on your mission. So I ended up putting my papers in and everything. And when I got my call, my family is from Scotland. Like my grandpa came over on the boat from Scotland. I was told all the time in Scotland that the only lake in Scotland is the Lake of Monteath. I saw a road in Scotland that was Monteath. Like it's wow. Scotland is just in our blood. Like our whole family is like, oh, cool. Scotland. Like I should have put up I have the Royal Scottish flag. Like that's the one that like we love in our family, is the one with the red rampant lion on it. And so that's the one that we like normally hang, and like, that's the one we loved in our family. But when I read my call, I read it Edinburgh as well, just like many other people. But like I actually like got choked up and I couldn't even finish like what I was reading, because I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, 'cause someone had asked me like a week before I got my call, they're like, oh, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really care. But like, if I really could choose anywhere, I would choose Scotland, like wow. That's where I would choose if I could go. But I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I just know that I'm supposed to go. And then all of a sudden, like I couldn't even finish, just like tears streaming down my face. Like family's all excited because like I'm going to the homeland, if you will, going home to Scotland. So that was and I reported February 26th or 28th. I think it was 28th. 2008 was my report date, I think. So oh no, that's a lie. I have it written down right here. February 8th, 2008. Nice. And then I actually came home a transfer early, so that I could get home in time for school. So I came home December 28th in 2009. So just, yeah, because President Griffiths came in second, and I was like, man, if I know myself, if I go home right after school starts, I'm going to get lazy, and like, because I'll wait until the next fall to go to school. And it's like, I would be out of school, 8 months, essentially, 7-8 months before I would like get back into the routine. So I was like, knowing myself, I was like, I got to get back. Like, I can't wait. So Life after the mission actually kind of started with about 3 months left in my mission. So my current wife was teaching my niece at the time, second grade. And my sister writes me this email and she's like, "Oh, you've got to meet this girl when you get home. She's so awesome. Like, you two would get along so well." And she's like, I was like, "Well, on our mission, like with President Frederick, I mean, it was like boldness was like the thing. It's like when you had a feeling, like act on it." And I was like, "Well, why do I need to wait till I get home? Just send me your email. Like, I'll just start emailing her right now." Like, what freaking crazy kid, like, starts emailing some random girl that never even met her on his mission? I was like, sure, why not? Like, what do I have to lose? Like, that was just kind of my attitude. And so anyway, we started emailing each other, and my wife, her name's Chelsea, she like writes me back, and our emails start like super small, just like, "Hey, how's it going?" Just small talk. And they end up growing into these, like, it ended up taking me like the whole hour of P Day. I didn't even get to write my family because I was just reading what she wrote to me and writing back to her and responding. And anyway, so that was like 3.5 months left. And then like, it was the night before my last transfer. And I'm like, what should I write her? What stories can I tell her about? What experiences have I had this week? And I thought, you know what? Maybe I should just invite her to come to Colorado, because she lived in Utah at the time, teaching in Utah. I was like, maybe I should just invite her to come to Colorado and then drive back to Utah with me when I go back to school, because I was getting home on a Monday, and then I'd only be home for 6 days and then right back to school. So like, I was like, yeah, just come out to Colorado and then drive back with me. It'd be a great time to get to know each other. So like, and of course, so I write that to her, and you have to wait a whole week, to get the response. And then I get the response, and it was like, "Oh yeah, I talked to your mom and I bought my plane ticket. I'm heading out Wednesday." And I was like, "What the heck?" Like, what? How random? Like, I was like blown away. I like threw myself back in my chair, and I was serving with Elder Finley at the time, and I'm sure he was like, what just happened? So yeah, wow. I get home on the Monday, and that was December 28th. And then she comes out New Year's Eve day, right? And so I pick her up at the airport. She spends the day with my family, and I was very quiet that day. And normally I'm not very quiet, because I was just observing her, and I was like, if she can handle my family, like, she'll be okay. My family's a little much sometimes to when we all get together. We're a little boisterous, and yeah, we get a little heated sometimes. So I'm like, you know what? If she can handle this, she'll be okay. Because it was like the first time all of us were together except one of my siblings. So yeah, she was great. Well, of course, New Year's Eve tradition is you got to kiss. So I'm home 3 days, and it's like 2 a.m. and my mom is standing there talking to us, and I'm like, "Mom, like, leave, like, get out of here." So finally my mom leaves, and I end up, we end up kissing, and it was just like something happened. It was like a spark hit. I was just like, this is the one. And we had talked in emails about like marriage, and I was like, I don't want to mess around when I get home, because like I was going to be 24. Like, I didn't really like dating even before I left on my mission. Like, I was never a guy that liked, oh, I want to date you one weekend, and then the next night I'm going to go date this girl. It was like, I was always committed to like one girl. And so I was like, you know what, everything was like lining up, and I'm just like, she's so great. Well, I just knew it was right. And so the next morning I took her up to Red Rocks Amphitheater, and we climbed up on the rocks, and I asked her to marry me. And she said yes.
Wow.
That's amazing, man.
Oh my gosh, what a story.
21 hours after picking her up from the airport, we got engaged. So I didn't have a ring yet or anything. I didn't talk to her dad. That's probably my biggest regret is not talking to her parents beforehand. But yeah, it all worked out. We have, just had our 13th wedding anniversary on the 15th, and 3 kids. Got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So Lincoln, Chloe, and Beckett.
That's awesome.
So that's, I got home, started, we got married 4.5 months after that. And I kept going to school and playing lacrosse and ended up coaching lacrosse for the last 10 years. And I managed a sandwich shop for a while there in college and stopped going to school for a little bit just because, and I thought, man, the sandwich shop life is the life for me. I'm going to own this place one day. And finally I had to, grow up, but I decided what better way to grow up than get your real estate license. So
amen.
I got the real estate license, and a big reason was my young men's leader. He was a realtor, and he ended up paying for half my mission. And I thought, you know what, if someone that's not my family can afford to pay for half of someone else's mission, that's got to be a pretty good lifestyle. Like, I want to be able to do that for somebody else as well someday. Someone that's in need, maybe lost a parent or just struggling with something. Like, I'm sure you've been able to find those opportunities where you're, a lot of times I'm not able to give time, but I can give monetarily to help ease someone's burden. Because a lot of times that's what people really need is just a little help with some money to get them by. So,
yep.
That was a big reason I wanted to go there. So anyway, been doing that for, just hit my 10-year mark there as well. And
wow,
I actually ended up just starting my own brokerage. So broke out on my own and just doing my own thing now.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, your stories were awesome. I got chills when you told the story about how you ended up deciding to go on a mission. And then that story of, it was the ultimate blind date.
It really was.
My goodness. Like it was almost like a blind date in a pressure cooker where it was like, hi, nice to meet you. Here's my family. Let's kiss on New Year's. Now we're engaged. I mean, like, ultimate. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
We need to pitch that to the church for a movie or something, or just Hollywood. Just crazy love. That'd be a good like Hallmark Christmas movie, right?
I think you're right.
It was right around Christmas.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Anyway,
I love it. Yeah, so let's go back to the mission. Let's talk about Scotland. You could start MTC if you'd like, and your experience there, and then we'll just go through areas, companions, and stories.
Yeah, I was digging through. I know I found my journal at one point, and I could not find it to save my life, but I did find my old Preach My Gospel, luckily. So I do have the names of my companions, areas, people that were baptized, like. Whew, like, cause that brought back a lot of like, oh yeah. Cause like, I was like, man, in the MTC, like, I remember going to Preston, but that's about it. I was like, I know the temple was right there in Preston. I don't remember going chapping. I remember going and playing, well, you don't call it soccer, it's football. Right. I was reprimanded numerous times on my mission about that. It's not soccer, it's football. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh goodness.
Anyway, but my companion in MTC was actually from France. Wow. And so his name was Charles Mumbray, and I remember thinking, I was like, he spoke English, but it wasn't like great. And so I really had to focus on what he was saying and sometimes help him with some of his words. And a lot of times I would start getting frustrated because I was just like, man, like, I just want to have like a normal conversation. But, there's always reasons for things when you're in a situation, and I don't know about you guys, but we taught a lot of foreigners on the mission, and a lot of them spoke broken English, like bad. And so I feel like
Yeah.
part of me being paired up with him in the MTC was helping me to really focus and piece together what people were trying to say in English that was not their first language. And so it was, again, I think it was helping, well, even the Scottish language for that matter. Like, really, it took me about 6 months to understand what they were saying because, man, we'd be talking on the street and like, I would just sit there and just blank stare at people because I had no idea what they were saying.
Wow.
And anyway, I mean, you have people walk by, the one of the people say, hey, all right, Paul. And I'm like, my name's not Paul. Like, are they making fun of me because like they think I'm like Paul the disciple, or like why are they calling me Paul all the time? Like, I finally figured it out. I'm like, oh, they're saying like, hey, buddy, hey, pal, how you doing? Like, it took me so long because I'm sure I was just like cold when people walk by. Because I'm like, what? No, that's not my name. Are you making fun of me? Like, anyway, just yeah, the Scottish language is so so funny. Anyway,
I have to agree with
yeah,
you though, Tyler. Like the ability to listen to people from, I mean, Scotland had some melting pot areas where you got people from all over the world. And it's definitely become one of my strengths because one, listening to the Scots speak 1,000 miles a minute on top of listening to people who learned English that's Scottish, but also their first language was, somewhere in Asia or, the eastern part of Europe, or they just didn't speak English at all. Like being able to listen was such a skill that I think we all had to develop at some point in our missions that I'm grateful I still have it, because my favorite thing ever is talking to someone who speaks broken English and they're apologizing the whole time. And I'm like, no, I got you, So I'm really grateful that was part of our experience.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun. I mean, yeah, meeting people from all over the place. Like, and I actually found out because I asked someone that I was like, why are there so many foreign people here in Scotland in the UK? And I don't know if anybody's told you guys this, but apparently other European countries pay the UK to take refugees. Because I don't know about you guys, but we taught a lot of refugees that were trying to seek asylum from their countries.
Interesting.
And this, I didn't really have a connection with this guy, but one of my companions taught this guy that I very briefly met, and the companion at the time was Ryan Blake, and he told me that if his tribe in Africa found out he was even learning about the church, they would bury him up to his waist and stone him to death. Like, that's what he was up against. I'm like, what that is so insane. Like, but that's like what some of these people were up against. And I mean, a lot of those people were seeking asylum or refuge, but the other European countries didn't want them in their country, so they would pay the UK to take these refugees. That's why you had so many high-rise flats, and the government just gave people places to live. And I mean,
I didn't realize that. That's really interesting.
I can't remember who told me that. I think it was an area in Glasgow I was in, and one of the bishopric members was telling me about that, how the country functioned that way. And I was like, that's, I guess if you want to get that free money, might as well.
I know. I was going to say,
deal with the other stuff.
That's honorable, but it's not, because you're getting a kickback.
Exactly. And you're probably not putting as much into helping the people as what you're receiving, would be my guess. But
no,
I don't know.
Probably just enough.
Exactly. Like, get you a place to live, some food, just the necessities. Yep. But that's their system, and that's how it works for them. So anyway, head to the MTC. Again, I don't even remember getting there. Like, train, obviously was how you got there, but get to the MTC. I do remember going in, and I believe it was Elder Jeremiah Johnson, and Elder Lucas were the two assistants at the time. And I want to say Elder Ashton was a threesome there because he was just about to go home.
Okay.
I think. Or maybe it was one of them was about to go home. I can't remember. Elder Lucas was there for a while, but Elder Johnson and Elder Ashton both left relatively soon to me getting there. And then Elder Bockham was one of my zone leaders. No, that's not true. He was my district leader. Elder Bockham was, I think. And then my trainer was Tyson Bear, which I know his name's been mentioned several times on here, and he was older when he left on his mission as well. So we were both older, 22 at the time when we met up on the mission. And obviously there was a reason why we got paired up together, but unfortunately we only served 6 short weeks together. But they put us in the Meadows area in Edinburgh. So there was like 6 companionships with the assistants on top of that, all in the Edinburgh ward when I was there. Like there was a lot of companionships. Like it was crazy. And it was like, I felt like when we came in, there was like the Wild West, because it was like, oh, like we found this guy, but he lived in, this other area for this other missionaries, but like we found him, so we're going to teach him. And so like, it came to a point where we were wasting a lot of time, like traveling like to other areas and then back to our own. And so like, we finally had to have a meeting and be like, no, guys, like if you find someone in someone else's area, just let them take them. Like, let's be efficient with our time so we're not wasting time going back and forth, But the first guy that I was able to help teach, Elder Bear had already contacted him, and he was already like progressing. And his name was Kwame Narte, and he was awesome. He was I swear he was high all the time, but he was probably just super tired because he worked nights. And we would come and pound on his door to wake him up, and he would just have like the hazed over, like droopy eyes, and we're just like, "Hey, we're here! Like, wake up, man!" But he just like, and it was always dark in his house. And I remember that because like he just wanted, like, he's like, "Oh, Elders, I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired." And we're like, "Well, you got to get up for church, man." Like we would ride the bus like 30 minutes away to go pick him up, and then 30 minutes back to church. Like it was a lot just to go get one person, but it was worth it because, he ended up getting baptized, and it was the first one that I ever experienced. And it was early on in my mission. So I think that helped set the tone for like what we were supposed to do there, because they just hammered into us, your purpose here is to baptize. Like that's all you're supposed to do. You just baptize people. Like, don't worry about anything else, just baptize them. And so I wasn't as young and naive as some of the other elders, Oh yeah, that was Kwame. I think that set the precedence for my mission. And then, like I said, 6 quick weeks there with Tyson Bear. It was, I do have a funny story about Chad Bockham that I wish he would have shared. And I talked to him about this at lunch when we went. And so he told the story about the mouse that used to run around in his house named, actually, I don't know if he told you guys about that, but I was over there when the door was broken down and they had to pull it shut and everything because we had gone on exchanges. And I'm like, dude, you guys live here? And it's like, someone's just going to break in and like beat us in the middle of the night. Like, seriously? And so anyway, I just thought I didn't say anything to him. I'm like, this is kind of sketchy. Like, you should probably get your door fixed. Like, this isn't safe. And so anyway, we're in there at night planning, and we hear this little scurry running around. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's our mouse, Henry. I'm like, oh, gross. So they had a mouse in a flat, and I don't know how long he had been there, but I remember Elder Bockham, like the mouse runs across the floor, and he looks, and he just frisbees the area book, and you know how heavy those things are, and it lands right on top of the mouse.
No more
I was like, oh
Henry.
my gosh, that's so nope. And he goes, oh, Henry, rest in peace. Like, I couldn't believe he hit the mouse as it was running across the floor with the area book, just perfect toss. Like, he's probably just great at cornhole or something. I don't know. But that was one of my good memories of Elder Bockham. So, because his stories were amazing on here, man. His detail and his recall of his stories were absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah.
anyway, he helped me to help relive some of these funny memories. But anyway, so I left Edinburgh and went to Pollock, just outside Glasgow in the Paisley Zone. I went with Ryan Blake, who ended up, man, I look at like my first three companions. Like Elder Blake became an assistant, Elder Nielsen became an assistant. I never did, so maybe I just wasn't that good, I guess. I don't know. But the elders they put me with were all very good elders, like super hardworking. I remember going in with Ryan, and man, he was just a freaking workhorse. He just didn't stop. I remember him like we would be on the buses, and he would like close his eyes just for like 5 minutes, and it was like he was just like resetting, getting that quick nap in, and then it was like as soon as the bus stopped, he was just like pop up, and he was like boom, and he was like felt like he was sprinting out of the bus, and I'm like, dude, like slow down. But he just did not stop. And one of the people that that guy contacted everybody, and like I was, you might not think it, but like I was pretty shy. Like I do not like talking to new people. I'm like pretty reserved. I mean, I'll do it if I have to, but like for the most part, I get really awkward and nervous at first. Like just like the initial introduction. If I have to be the one to like street contact, I hated that. I just hated it. But he just didn't care. He was just right in people's face, and he talked to everybody. And I remember we were walking from the bus to I can't remember what the area was called. There was like 6 high-rise flats in Pollock, and I mean, other elders touched on it, but like, who do you contact? Like the people that are home. The people that are home are the ones that don't have jobs. Like they're usually home drinking or doing drugs. Like that's typically who we ran into. Like the majority of the time. And so, but we were walking up to these flats, and there was a mom and her daughter, and they were foreign. I think they ended up being from like Iraq or Iran or something like that. And I can't remember her name because they didn't end up, but we taught them for a long time. And this lady like didn't speak any English at all. And so she had her sister come, and her name was Yolanda. And she had two little kids one was baptism age. And we taught these, we must have taught them for 6 weeks, just a lot. And Yolanda was like so skeptical about anything we said, like anything we talked about. She just was like shutting it down. But she would start repeating what we were saying to her sister. And eventually she started like feeling the spirit of what we were teaching because she was repeating everything. She would like repeat the first vision. She would repeat scriptures we were saying. She was starting to speak it. And eventually she was like, I want to get baptized. She made the decision before her sister of like, this is true. Like, I'm ready to jump in. And like, she ended up being like a super awesome lady. They would come to church. Well, come to find out her husband was in prison at the time for selling drugs. And so he ended up getting out, but we were like, you know what, maybe he's changed. We start teaching him, and he comes to church for the first time, and it was fast and testimony meeting. And he didn't speak great English, and he heard a lot of Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith. And, we believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet. And so he was hearing that over and over and over. And because maybe that was the theme of the testimony meeting, was the prophet, that was kind of there's kind of a theme that starts popping out. So that might have been it. And he's like, he got really mad after church, and he's like, this seems like the church of Joseph Smith, not the church of Jesus Christ. Like, all I hear is Joseph Smith's name. I don't hear anything about Jesus Christ. And I think it's just because he wanted to go back to his old lifestyle, and he was, so like he actually had his thumb and forefinger snipped off, which I guess that for drug dealers, they snip them off because that's like the pinching to like measure the drugs.
Yeah.
So he had those snipped off. He had missing his index finger and his thumb on one of his hands. And he pretty much shut us down. Like, never come see her again. Like if I see you talking to you again, like I'm going to hurt you. And so we were like, well, that was like one of the most sad like experiences I had on my mission, teaching like this lady and her kids, and like how happy and excited they were, like just being around us. And like you could see the light that we brought when we came and saw them, and how excited they were when we walked in to teach them. And the kids were engaged, and they would like drop pictures of the plan of salvation, and like it was awesome. But then, like I said, the dad came home, and Elder Blake and I were just kind of like, nope, that guy's gonna have a lot to answer for after this life, like,
man,
just for what he did. But people have reasons for what they do, and I believe, I don't know. I believe he'll be okay. In the end, I think he'll be okay. So anyway, there was a lot that happened there. We baptized 2 people when I was there with Elder Blake. No, 3. So we got 3 baptisms in that area, which was that was pretty fun. I can't remember how long I was there for. I was there till September 14th. And then I got shipped off to, I had several companions in Pollock. So after Elder Blake left, Chad Nielsen came in, which I know he's been mentioned on this podcast as well. He was one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. Things would go wrong or whatever, and like he would just, he just made light of everything, and he was a joy to be around. I really, really enjoyed being around Elder Nielsen. Elder Wells was my next one. Came in, Landon Wells. I don't know if he'll like me telling this story, but it was good. It's awesome. I got to tell it. So there's this road in Pollock that we finally got a car with Elder Blake because we were on the buses and everything, but because we were doing so much teaching, like they finally gave us a car. So that was nice to have that. But Elder Wells came in. I didn't love driving. So I was like, dude, you can drive. You need to learn, because he was a little younger than I was, but I was like, you can learn. So we're driving down this road in Pollock, and it like drops down into this valley, and then it comes back up and at the peak of this hill, there was a flock of seagulls like in the middle of the road. And so we're like, we go down, and we're coming up, and he downshifts and just guns it as we're going up the hill. And like I said, the seagulls are sitting right at the peak, so they could not see us coming up this hill. And right when we get up over, like the seagulls are right, they all try to scatter, and we hit probably 6 seagulls in that car. 2 like bounced off the windshield. One of them got stuck on the side mirror, like the wing had broken over the side mirror. And so I rolled down the window, and I'm like trying to like push this seagull off the mirror. And then we end up stopping, and we noticed like a wing was up and over the hood in the front of the car. And so we're like, oh, we better stop. So we get out, and the bird had gone all the way into the grill. It didn't break the grill, but somehow it like squeezed through the little cracks in the front of the grill. And like we were trying to like pull it out of the grill, and we ended up having to pop the hood and pull it like in through the hood and out. Like it was disgusting, but also hilarious at the same time. And like luckily it didn't like crack the windshield or anything. But
where's Elder Wells from?
Highland, Utah. or
Okay, that
alpine.
that explains a lot. You can't do that in Utah. That's a sacred bird. So he just went after it, I guess. Oh goodness.
Yeah, and they are gross. But yeah, that was a good one. So anyway, and on that same car though, I remember getting out and the wind was so bad one day. It grabbed the door and like swung it forward and totally snapped it off its hinges because the wind was so strong. That car got beat up. Little maroon 2-door. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I'm sure that office elders hated us. Anyway, so after Elder Wells, uh, district leader when Elder Wells came in. So then I was training Elder Lubeck and was the district leader in Pollock. And that was a tough experience. Elder Lubeck was tough. He ended up being a great missionary. When he first came out, he thought he knew everything. He did not want to listen to instruction. He complained about everything. I will say his complaining did help because in that flat we had in Pollock, the shower didn't work. So we would boil pots of water and dump them on ourselves, soap up, dump more water on ourselves to get the soap off. Because dumb young elders, like, why would we call? No, we can't. We don't have time. We can't sit around and wait for a handyman to come fix our shower. Like, we have to go work. Like, you know, we got to get out there. We have the schedule. We can't, like, I mean, you hear about hammer time and what hammer time meant to some elders. And hammer time to me is not what these other elders are explaining about like the reporting and the numbers and all that. Hammer time to me was when your leaders came into your flat and reprimanded you with scriptures and made you feel like crap. And then afterwards, they would always share the scripture and doctrine and covenants, you know, afterwards show an increase of love. And like, you'd always go away like feeling pretty good, but you always like, I was like, man, like, that wasn't cool. Like, I was like, I just got reprimanded, like bad. Like, I don't feel very good right now. So the hammer time, that's what hammer time meant to me was like, oh man, my leaders are gonna I just screwed up and like, man, they're gonna come hammer me, you know?
Oh, jeez.
So that's what hammer time meant to me. Because like the numbers thing, like that was just always there from the beginning of my mission. So I didn't know any different from like what maybe it just morphed into what it was. But you hear about someone had the pin hammer. I can't remember who talked about that. But that was known as the Glasgow hammer because when you were getting reprimanded, they put on the hammer, but then it broke. And so you didn't get the hammer anymore.
I'm pretty sure that was Matt.
I think it was Elder Lucas. Maybe it was, yeah. But like Matt's one of my most favorite. I love Matt so much. He's hilarious. But anyway, I actually it's funny when I talk to some of these guys because I was older going out. I actually knew Matt's sister as a freshman at BYU. And when I went on my mission, met him and it was just so weird to me. I was like, oh my gosh, you're younger than she was. But I felt so young, you know, even though I was 2 years older than most of these, you know, guys going out there. And I mean, by the time I was I was 24 at the end of my mission, and I get a kid that comes out and is 18, 19 and misses their mommy. And I'm like, dude, like, come on. Like,
yeah, that's a big difference.
I was out on my own for 3 years before I even left on my mission. So when I got out there, I was just like it was no different from me, you know, but you get some kids that come out straight from home and that was difficult. And, but Elder Lubeck, he was, the leaders had to come and do their hammer time several times in our area. We'll just say, went on exchanges a lot, just trying to like get him to like, dude, like you just gotta be willing to learn, you know, you've got to be willing to to take instruction. And I had a really good experience with him later. Like towards the end of my mission, I ran into him in a zone conference, and he apologized to me for like being so difficult. And he's like, I realize, I was so hard, and that meant a lot to me, because I was like, you can't always make someone see their own faults, and it's a lot easier to point it out in someone else and see it in yourself. But he made amends, which was, I loved it. I loved that. And him and I had a lot of fun too, though. We there was one member who had some boys that were not members. So the mom was a member, but the kids were not. And one time we were walking past, how like they always had like basketball courts sitting around, but it was like a soccer, like miniature soccer pitch inside the basketball court. So you had like the small soccer goals on each side. So these two boys were out there playing soccer in there, and we challenged them. So we were like, hey, they would always talk trash to us, like, oh, you Americans can't play soccer. And Elder Lubeck played soccer in high school, and I want to say he played at a community college for 1 year before he came out. So he was tall and lanky, like he was a good player. And so we were like, fine, like, you want to play? Like, we'll challenge you. Like, we beat you. You guys have to come to church on Sunday, right? And you beat us, and we'll quit bugging you about coming to church, because like their mom would always, like, they'd have us over for dinner, and we would give the lesson, and she'd make her boys come in and listen, but they would never, they didn't want anything to do with the church. So we challenged them, and we ended up beating them. They never came to church, but they stopped running their mouth. So it was pretty good. As we're in our slacks and white shirts, tuck the tie into the shirt, and we're like, all right, game on, let's go. So it was pretty fun, though. It was just, I think it was good just to like sometimes bond with people that really had no interest in coming to church, but like, hey, like, we're humans too. Like, we enjoy talking about normal stuff, not just Jesus. Like, we enjoy sports, like we can level with you guys as well. Like, we're not just gonna hammer the gospel down your throat. Like let's be humans with each other,
Missionaries are people too.
So yeah, exactly. So well, after Elder Lubeck, I think I trained him for 2 transfers, and then I left and went to this was my favorite area. It's hard to say a favorite area, but I went to Livingston, is what it was called. So it was in the Edinburgh zone, but it was just outside Edinburgh. And man, I have lots of really good people that are in that area. But the people that I talk to the most now are in the Livingston area. So the bishop at the time was Bishop Patterson. Yeah, man, the Grants were probably the family that I came the closest with. I can't remember the mom's name, Sister Grant, friends with her on Facebook. Liz Grant. So she had 2 boys that I knew of. One was actually coaching the kickers at BYU for the football team. So he wasn't actually in Scotland, but her other son, Thomas Grant, lived in Scotland. And when I went into that area, I was companions with Craig Needham. He's from England, and loved swimming. So he hated being on a mission where he couldn't swim. So he was a lifeguard before he left. He wanted to do like ocean lifeguarding when he got home from his mission. So he just loved the water. And so, yeah, that was one of his things he always just wanted to do, was swim. And I like the water too. So it was kind of like, we'd always try to like find like a stream that we could walk through, at least like up to our ankles or something, but never, you never get in, because the devil owns the water, right? That's what we were told. Satan has control of the waters. So, you don't want to go swimming. And, now that I'm older, I'm sure it's because, they don't want elders and sisters in swimsuits together. That's probably why they say stay out of the water. So, so Craig Needham, yeah, Thomas Grant. Let's see. I can't remember if we met Thomas while I was with Elder Needham, because my next companion that came in was Scott Anderson. And I can't remember when we met Thomas, but we ended up, his mom, Liz, sent us to go meet with Thomas because he wasn't active, hadn't been active for a long time, and so she sent us to go talk with him. And nicest guy you will ever meet is Thomas Grant. I mean, I just love that guy. Like, he bought me and Elder Anderson Celtic jerseys for Christmas one year when we were there. And I don't know what the rules were when you were there, but on Christmas you could watch movies from home. So we had a movie night with him, and we watched. I can't remember what movies we watched, but Iron Man was one of them that had come out that year. I always liked the Marvel movies, so those were the ones we always tried to watch on Christmas Day. But so we started teaching Thomas and just becoming friends with him. He loved KFC. So he would always take us to KFC and go eat at KFC. I mean, that was his heaven, was let's go get a bucket of chicken and just down this, bucket of chicken, just us three. So we would go there, but he ended up having a friend named Andy Wanless. And Andy had just lost his dad. And so him and his dad had a really good, close relationship. And so I felt like Andy and I were able to bond over, losing a parent. And we skipped over the restoration because that's the first message you're supposed to share. But we skipped over that and went right into the plan of salvation. And that was one of the most powerful lessons I had ever had was going through that with him, and just the look on his face of I'm going to see my dad again. It's going to be okay. We end up going through all these lessons and, invite him to be baptized, and he wants to be baptized. And so, and this whole time, Thomas is going through kind of a reactivation phase as well, as we're teaching together with Thomas and Andy. And so Thomas's, testimony is getting, ignited again. And we invite Thomas, if he feels comfortable and wants to baptize Andy, to he's his best friend. So we're yeah, you should be the one to baptize Andy. Well, we're getting prepared for the baptism, and Thomas is in the bishop's office, and Bishop Patterson's office, having a little interview, making sure he's ready to go and everything. And they can't find the record that Thomas was ever ordained to a priest. And he's we don't have a record here. And Bishop Patterson was just let's do it right now. So he just ordained him to a priest, right then and there. And then we had the baptism.
Wow.
And it was one of the most powerful baptisms I was a part of in Scotland. It was so awesome. We prepped for that baptism better than any other one that we ever had. We wanted that to just be a really great experience for everybody. Elder Anderson was unreal at playing the guitar. So they actually let him play the guitar, and there was a sister named Lori Cook. And him and her were extremely good singers. And so they were able to, he played Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing on his guitar. And him and her sang it as a duet. And it was unbelievable because, anyway, I love that hymn, and it was removed from the actual hymn book a long time ago, but man alive, it was an amazing experience, just listening to them and he, usually you don't hear a guitar in sacrament meeting, but the way he was playing it was just so, man, it was awesome. So that was a great experience. And then we had, man, I'm just looking at the baptisms we had there. We had a lot in Livingston. Holy cow. We had, oh, no, that was in Glasgow. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we baptized 4 people in Livingston, my time there. 2 of them didn't get confirmed though, which was unfortunate. There was a girl and her friend that, yeah, wanted a fresh start, so young 19-year-olds teaching a family. The mom had been taught in the past, long time ago. Husband was in prison. Seemed like there was a lot of people we taught where the husbands or dads were in prison for some reason. So, but yeah, the Crosslands was their name. And the son ended up getting baptized and confirmed. And the daughter got baptized. The friend got baptized, but the daughter and her friend ended up never showing up to get confirmed. And we probably should have just let them go before that. But the brother ended up getting baptized and confirmed, and he would come to church on his own sometimes. Like, we wouldn't have to like call and remind him. He would just get up and he would just show up. So it was like, what, there was something there for him, that allowed him to feel something. So well, after Livingston, I got shipped back to Edinburgh, back to my original area that I was trained in the Meadows. And I was companions with Tony Souter. He was from, where was he from? Romania. So he was an elder from Romania, spoke really good English, really good at soccer, good elder. But yeah, like I said, our time together was really short, just a quick 6 weeks. Funny story with him was, so in that flat in Edinburgh, they had one bed that was like big, like I think it was a queen size. So nice, big, comfy bed. And then there was like a cot for the other one. So like, I didn't really care. I was older than him in the mission, if you will. But he had paid his dues, so he got to sleep in the big bed and I slept on like the cot. But the cot was like right next to the heater. And how they have those like water, like the water circulates into them, and those things get like scalding hot. And he liked it to be really warm, and I did not. And so there was one night where like I was tossing, turning, rolling, sweating. Like I was like, holy crap, I cannot sleep. Like, it is so hot in here. Let's see, when did I go there? Because I'm pretty sure it was like in the winter. Yeah, it was in like February or March that I went back to Edinburgh. So it was cold. And like I would turn down the heat on the heater so it would start to cool down in the room. And I was like, oh, fine, like, I'm gonna go to sleep. And he would get up and go turn it back up in the middle. I'm like, oh my gosh, like put on an extra blanket. Like, it is so hot. And so I got up and I opened the window in the middle of the night because his side of the room was next to the window. My side was next to the heater. And I'm like, if you're hot, we're switching beds. Or if you're cold, we're going to switch beds. So you can sleep next to the heater and I can sleep in the bed. And he didn't want to do that. So I was like, get an extra blanket. Like, we worked it out after that one night, but man alive, it was so hot. But that was, yeah. Anyway,
were you in the same flat
today? I was, yeah. So same flat that I was trained in, same flat that I went back to in Edinburgh. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And it was like right in the middle of my mission. So like, it was like halfway through, like, yeah. Went right back to where well, I thought I was going to stay there for a long time. Like, I was like, oh yeah, they're bringing me back to Edinburgh. Like, sweet. I get to, like, I liked Edinburgh a lot. Like, I just like the feel of it. Like, we got to go tour the castle. That was in the first time I was there. Like, yeah, like walking through the castle. And that was something that I wish I would have spent more time doing on P-Day was just going to see the sights. Cause like the history there is, like, walking up to the Edinburgh Castle and the cobblestone road, and like, you just think like, man, horse and buggy used to be walking up and down this like thousands of years ago, and we're still walking on it. Like, it's just crazy, like, to think about that. And like, you'd be driving in the country and you would just see like a castle off in the distance, and it was like halfway falling down, and you're like, let's go stop by that real quick. Like, let's just go climb it. And we would do that sometimes. Like, what is that? Like, let's just go explore it, And I wish I did that more on P-Day. I always wanted to play sports, that's just what I wanted to do. And so we would get the other elders together and do our shopping real quick in the morning, and then go play, so
Yep.
do our emailing and then go play or whatever. But I wish I would have spent more time doing the touristy stuff on P days, because I think I missed out on a lot of really cool stuff that I could have seen. I still haven't been able to go back, but I really want to. So one day we'll get there. What time is it? Man, we're halfway through. We got this. I might be your longest one.
There's no way.
No, I don't think so.
Did you guys say like over 3 hours was one or something? Like 4? Oh yeah, I'm not going that long.
I had to trim it down pretty nastily.
Yeah, good for you. Anyway, so I went to Edinburgh for 6 weeks, real quick. I can't remember if Elder or President Griffiths had come in at that time. I don't think he was there yet, because I remember President Frederick. I mean, elders have talked about him and how, like, when you see President, he's just a man. Like, you just think of like that's a man right there. Like, he's just 70 years old and he's still just broad and strong, and like you could tell he had a strong grip, like just like someone that had been working on a farm or something. And his son Seth had come and visited, and he was and man, that kid was a monster, like just huge. Like, he's a football player, like, and you could tell President Frederick's just like pride that he had in his son, and how, like, how successful he was in sports. You could, and President Frederick and I felt bonded like that just through the sports aspect of things. And yeah, we always got along. I wish I could have spent more time around President and Sister Frederick, because like I said, I was only in Edinburgh for a total of 2 transfers. So
yeah,
and I can't remember when President Griffiths came in. So anyway, after Edinburgh, they shipped me off to, where did I go? They shipped me off to Glasgow. Yeah. Went over to be a zone leader in Glasgow. And that was, I didn't mind Glasgow. Like, everyone's saying that's the area you don't want to go to. Like, I met Bishop Pataranga. He was awesome. I can't remember who the bishopric was. Catholic, maybe? Anyway, I have some funny stories about being in Glasgow, though. So, my first companion there, a lot of these guys were quick, though. I went through a lot of companions. I went through 3 companions in Glasgow. So my first one was Sam Webb, that was from England. He was just a happy, cheery guy. Elder Stephen Gardner, I think I pretty much sent him home. Like, he was pretty to the end of his mission when he came out. And then Elder Bonin came in, and Elder Bonin told that story about me eating his potatoes, and I don't remember that. And he called me a sweetheart for doing that. Like, I don't remember eating his potato salad, but I mean, again, being at BYU, and we would go to like on lacrosse trips, and you'd get fed by members. And this was back in the day when you could they called host families, and so you didn't stay in hotels. There was families in the wards that you would go to play in, that they would let, like, sometimes they'd take 6 players and they would go stay in the houses of these members. And so they would feed you as well. And so sometimes you'd get fed stuff that you didn't really like, and you're like, you just got to eat it. Like, you're not gonna be rude and not eat the food. So, like, I kind of had that mindset already on my mission. Like, yeah, these people are like feeding us, just eat it. Like, and we're in Scotland. Like, the food's not that bad. Like, come on. Like, Brussels sprouts, is that the worst thing you can give me? Like, come on. You deep fry everything. Everything that's deep fried tastes delicious. Like, what are you complaining about? So, did you guys ever have deep fried Mars bars when you were there?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That was just the best thing I've ever had in my life, I think.
Did you ever have a battered pizza?
I did not.
Oh, you missed out. You missed out, brother. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
It's so
Man,
good.
how do they deep fry a pizza? Like
they get the frozen ones and they dip it in batter and they just drop it in like they would like the fish, and they pull it out and they put it in a thing and you eat it like a big cookie because it's so crispy. It was so good.
oh man, that sounds wonderful. Did you guys ever have the kebab pizza?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, I remember you'd have like the pizza right here and the kebab was like this high on it. Like
Yeah,
it was like more kebab than pizza, but I just remember watching them like shave it off and you're all, oh my gosh, like they're just gonna keep going. Just
oh yeah.
just keep going.
Definitely
Like,
go to the end of the night and they'll definitely give you more. It was just like,
oh yeah,
we're gonna throw this away. Let's just pile it on for these
for
American
sure.
kids.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I don't know if you guys would do, but we would stop by like on our way home, like at the end of the night to get it. And like, yeah, because it
Oh
was
yeah.
just like, holy cow, that's a lot of kebab. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's some man, deep fried Mars bars. So good. Uh anyways, I digress and sidetrack, but that was I wish I could have those again. So Elder Bonin, yeah, eating his food. I remember Elder Bonin one time. We came out of a lesson, and he was really frustrated with me because I was the kind of elder that would always like tell personal stories when I taught because I felt like it helped me relate to the person and make it more down to earth, if you will. And Elder Bonin was so like no, stick to the lesson, like get through the like no, stick to the doctrine. And I was like, no, I want to make it more personal, like. And he got so mad at me coming out of it. He's like, why do you always tell personal stories? He's like, you don't need to do that. And I was like, well, I want to tell him. Like, it helps me, like, I, I hate the word BRT or build a relationship of trust, but it's like, I'm just being a human being. Like,
Yep.
I'm just relating how it served me in my life so that they can understand that how it could relate to them. Because when you're just like shoving the doctrine down people's throats, like, most of it goes right over their head. Like they're only going to retain like 10% of the information you tell them. So if you can make some sort of connection with them, like I felt like that's what they needed was more of that connection than shoving doctrine down their throat and just getting through so we can invite them to be baptized. Like, I understand that's why we're here, but like, if you look at our retention rate, it's absolutely atrocious. So let's try to make sure that these people feel like they belong and feel like they want to be here. And like I said, make a little bit more of a connection with them than just I just want to baptize you and get my numbers to where they need to be. So I was never upset with him about that, but I just remember him being like very like, why do you always do that? Like it almost felt like you're taking away from the lesson. And I was like, okay, well, we can agree to disagree. You have your teaching style, I have my teaching style. There's a reason why we're together. Like, you stick to your doctrine, I'll tell the stories. How about that? Like, and we'll be a good team. So we got along really well, though. I loved Elder Bonin. He was, man, good storyteller as well. So, as you found out from him being on here, but he's the reason I'm on here is because he texted me and reached out and told me to jump on the podcast. So,
awesome.
Yeah, he's a good man. So that Glasgow was the area that man, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we baptized 5 people in that area while I was there. So we baptized a lady named Musa Chitango and her daughter Beryl. And I'm still in contact with her. She's not involved in the church anymore, but she always, if we ever like message each other on Facebook, she'll call me her elder. Like, oh, my elder, like, that like I'm sure you guys have had that as well. Like, oh, you're my elder because you're the one that taught me and baptized me or whatever. But
right.
she's always asking like how my family's doing, and she's that's a fun one. That fun when you're able to keep connections with those people. And so and Jane Moyambi is another one that's like that. So those, I'm looking through my list and going like, there's a lot of Ayurende, Abdi, Narti, Moyambi, Dapina, a lot of foreign
Yeah.
A lot of foreign people there. But I also got to go visit the compound of the Bartons while I was there in Glasgow. So I don't remember the Statue of Liberty though pulling up to the house. So apparently that's like a huge landmark, but I do not remember that. I do remember their house being like astronomically big. And it was like up at the point of this mountain. Like it was just, I felt like I was going to a castle. I was like, holy cow. Like, and Josh was like so nice. Their son, he'd like have us over for dinner. And like, he didn't really go and help teach because he was so busy with school. But like, he did have us over for dinner. And man, I remember, again, now that I'm older and in real estate and I look at his flat, I'm like, that thing was expensive in the heart of Glasgow, big, huge glass, like doors. I'm just like, man, yeah, that's some money. Like, yeah, that's next level. But anyway, yeah. So after Glasgow, they shipped me up to Elgin. So this was tough. So I opened up Elgin. I trained and was the district leader all at the same time up in Elgin. That was a lot.
Piece of cake.
That was a lot to handle. Yeah, I know, right? Like, yeah, here, why don't you just go to this area? But to be honest, though, that was probably one of my most successful areas. President Griffiths told they were like dying for missionaries up there. It was just a small branch up in Elgin. It's like maybe like there was like two like actual families with three families with like husband, wife, priesthood holders, like, and that was the bishopric, was like all three of them. Like that was it. Or branch presidency, I guess you can say, but yeah, but they were absolutely awesome. So President Griffiths made a deal with them. He said, we'll give you missionaries, but you have to feed them like every night. They have to have meals, and you have to provide referrals to them. You have to provide teaching opportunities for these elders, or we're not giving them to you. And so they said, fine, yep, we'll do it. You know, we go up there, super hospitable, actually, I got to backtrack because I have a really funny story about being in Glasgow. So about dinners. So we go to this family named the Douglases, and they have 4 missionaries there. It's me and my companion. I don't remember who was there, but I do remember Elder Harrison was there. It wasn't Chad Harrison. It was the English Harrison. He was with me. And I want to say it was Elder Webb. Could have been Elder Bonin. And I don't remember who the 4th one was. But so we go to this member's house, and they're feeding us that like chocolate mousse cake for dessert. And so the member kind of cuts into it, and I don't know how to say this nicely, but they're a little slower, you know, mentally, but like obviously enough to like feed us and maintain lifestyle or whatever. But anyway, so he cuts this cake and he goes and like spoons it up, and he sticks his finger in the side of it to like balance it on the spatula, and then puts it on the plate, and all of us like look at each other like, oh, who's taking that first one? And then he licks his fingers, and all of us are like, oh, I want that. Like, I want the first one. And the second piece, he does the same thing and sticks his fingers back in the side and on the plate. And we're all like, oh my gosh, it's so gross. Because his fingers just had the wet, licked chocolate mousse, as he had stuck it into the side of the cake and serving it to each one. It's like the 4th piece had every single one that he had stuck into the side of the cake. And oh my gosh, that was good. That was a good time, that one. So I mean, nobody got sick or anything, so it ended up being all right, you know. But
it's reasons like that's why we bless the food.
I know, right? Yeah, bless the chocolate mousse cake, that it'll nourish and strengthen my body, along with the saliva of the member that's in it now as well. Oh my gosh. Anyway, sorry, I had to backtrack to that because that's one of my. That one I didn't even have to look up to remember that one. So that one is seared into my brain. So anyway, yeah, go up to Elgin, and I mean, we don't have anyone to teach initially, so we're like, well, what do? We break into the area book. We just start going through from past missionaries, which I don't know how long it had been since missionaries had been there. So we're just like, well, we're supposed to be here, like, so we just, and we have members that we're visiting as well, so it's not like we're just doing nothing. So like, we really focused on like going to visit the members, but then like, okay, well, we're in this area, so who was being taught previously that we could go see. We ended up going to see this lady. Her name's Elizabeth DePina was her name, and she had 4 kids. 2 of them were old enough to get baptized. I think I remember 3 for sure. But anyway, so yeah, we ended up teaching her, and that was tricky because we needed to make sure that we had another member with us to go and teach. So we weren't in there with just her. And again, another girl that had a boyfriend that was in prison. So that was another one. Actually, I think he got sent to prison while we were teaching her because he was abusive. He was beating her. Because I'm pretty sure we started teaching him as well, and we had no idea the abuse was going on, but he was abusing her and the kids, and he ended up going to prison, and they got baptized when he was in prison, and she gave us a lot of his stuff. So I actually got an Armani watch that she had bought for him, and she's like, I'm not giving it to him, like, you have it. So I got this like 500-pound watch.
Oh my gosh.
That she just gave to me, and I'm like, I still have it. So
awesome.
It is like, it's heavy. It's like, it's a nice watch. But yeah, she just, yeah, you want it? I was like, yes, I do. Thank you very much. So, yeah, she gave us a whole bunch of stuff. We like helped her move all of his stuff out of the house. And anyway, that was a great family. I had some really good memories with them. But when the boyfriend was about to get released from prison, she did not feel safe. And so the branch president actually helped get her a place that was like way out in the country, like down kind of by where he lived. And he would like help shuttle them to church and like kind of like put them into protective custody, if you will. Like, so he was actually a social worker as well. So I think that was part of the reason why he was able to like have those connections to like help move people around to keep them safe. But man, I wish I could remember his name because he was freaking awesome.
Tyler, who was your greenie that you trained at that point in time?
Joshua Finley was his name. And we were about as opposite as you could be. So, yeah, me and Elder Finley. He was in the orchestra. I was a sports guy growing up. He was brand new coming out, never been on his own. And I had been on my own for, at that point, 6 years now, including the mission. And he was very quiet and reserved. There was a lot of food he did not and would not eat that I ended up eating of his as well. Mashed potatoes was one where I'm just like, you can't eat mashed potatoes? Like, Brussels sprouts was another one that was like, he would not. I'm like, I remember at one, we were at the Stobart's house, and I remember they made us like, potatoes and like, I can't remember what the meat was. It was like I don't know, pulled beef brisket or something. So it was really good. And then the Brussels sprouts. And he was like, just, he was like a little kid, like stirring it with his fork with this like disgusted look on his face, looking at the food. And I'm like, Elder, I'm going to teach you a trick when you're eating stuff that you don't like. Eat the stuff you don't like first.
Yep.
You got to get that down, because if you don't, and you eat your meat and all the really tasty stuff, then you feel like you're going to throw up if you're eating this stuff you don't like. So eat Eat the Brussels sprouts first. Get them down. Leave 2 if you have to, but eat those first. And so like I was so mad because I had already eaten my other stuff, and like I didn't mind Brussels sprouts. They weren't the best, but like I didn't mind them. You know, you put enough salt on anything, it'll taste just fine. So, or gravy. They had gravy there too. So, you know, just douse it in gravy and eat that. So, yeah, I was like, so the member turned their backs and I like shoved it onto my plate and like just started eating it real quick. Cause I was like, that's so rude. Like, you can't like, a lot of these people like didn't have a lot of money and like, yeah, there was this one family, they're the Williams, and I know they've been talked about on here quite a bit, but man, we spent a ton of time at their house. And I remember going to their house one time, and the mom for the first time was like, Julie was her name, and she was not happy. You could tell she was on edge. She was upset. She was like just quick to get angry. And I was all like, what is going on? Because this is not like her. And I guess the husband had lost his job and like they had no food to feed any, and they used to feed us like every time we came over. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And like we had shown up like expecting to be fed because that's what they did. They always fed us and like happily and loved having us over. And this time was just different. And I'm like, what is going on? And finally she had like, I didn't ask her what was going on, but finally figured out like, oh, the husband had lost his job. Things were tough financially. Like they didn't have food to feed us. And then all of a sudden, some of their friends who owned a butcher shop showed up to the house with all this extra meat that he had trimmed and had. And like, I was just like, holy crap. Like, and they had started making us food even. So it was like, it almost felt like the widow's mite, like story of like, they were giving us everything they had. And then their friends showed up and just, yeah.
That's cool.
Gave them like, I can't even tell you how much meat it seemed like half a cow, and maybe it wasn't that much, but it seemed like that much. So we had like, they ended up starting cooking some of that meat that they brought in, and like we ended up teaching that family that came in, and I didn't get to see them get baptized, but Elder Finley and Elder Wheat, who had come in as a threesome right before I left home because I went home early, they ended up seeing that family get baptized. So like the Williams were a huge part of them like coming around to the church. So I believe their daughter actually though was the first one to get baptized. Shannon was her name, and she was friends with Zoe Williams. And she had ended up getting baptized first and a while ago, but yeah, the rest of the family, the brother and the mom and dad ended up getting baptized as well. Which was just, yeah, pretty cool story. One of my favorite, I'm almost there, right? We got 2 more. So one of the best couples that like I met, or families, whatever, strongest people we met while I was there teaching was Ewan and Mickey Tate. And they were friends of the Waddles who lived out there. Man, that family I loved. Rob was his name. And he married, where was his wife was from the US. But man, they were so much fun. They had, you know, little boys and stuff. Like I remember digging. So he had I don't know if it was a well or whatever to his house, but like the water line had broke to his house, and it was in the winter, so it was freaking cold. But he had to bury a new pipe from his house up the mountain, and like on top of the hill was where his water line tapped in. So his water line had broken. He had to run a whole new one. So I remember going up there with Elder Finley, and we had to like move rocks, like boulders off the mountain, dig trenches. Like it was a long ways, and it was like up the steep hill, and we're like climbing and trying to get these rocks. And I remember I was moving rocks, and Rob was down below me, and it fell. And I remember it went like right on top of his shin, and I don't know how this thing did not snap his leg, because it like hit like on top of his foot and like right in the middle of his shin. Is it like this? I mean, the rock was probably this big.
Oh my gosh.
And it like dropped probably 5 feet right below me. And it went hit him right in the shin. And I'm like, how did that not snap your leg? Like, just insane.
Huh.
But he let us kill one of his chickens and pluck the feathers and eat it.
Wow.
So yeah, you have to hold the chicken kind of in your like this, and then you put the neck between your fingers like this, and then you just like you wait for the chicken to relax, and then you take your thumb and press it on the back of the chicken's neck, and then as soon as they relax, you go down and forward and drive your thumb into the back of the neck, and just he let me do it.
Oh
I didn't quite break it though, so he had to like grab the chicken's neck and like snap it.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, he taught us how to kill a chicken, bleed it, pluck the feathers, and we ended up eating it a little bit, for dinner one night like later. But it was pretty cool to like have that experience of snapping a chicken's neck, plucking it and eat it. So talk about catching your own dinner. But so we taught their friends, the Tates, and Ewan was I think that's how you say his name, but he was he was in the special forces in the UK. So he had I didn't get like specific stories from him, but I know he was in combat, we'll just say, because he was teaching us how to do these moves with the knife coming up behind people and like, you grab their neck and pull it this way and you come across and then stab them twice in the chest. And I'm like, you slice the neck and then stab him in the neck and then twice in the chest. And he's like, it's guaranteed kill. I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess that's how you do. Cause like, so needless to say, he had to have an interview from President Griffiths, to get baptized. But, him and his wife ended up getting baptized, and that font in the branch building was really cool because there was like floorboards that went over the top of it. And so you had to like pull them up and like pull them away from the floor, and the font was just down, like you walked over it when you were at church.
Mm-hmm.
Just right on top of it. It was really cool, like an in-ground font. So anyway, that was kind of wrapped up the mission. We like I said, I kind of told you what the end of my mission was like, focusing more on getting home and finding my wife. And
you already found her. You had to execute when you got there.
I just didn't know it yet. But I had asked President Griffiths, because he told me that he asked his wife to marry him on their first date as well. And so I asked him, I was like, well, how did you know? Like, how did you know to ask her on your first date? And he had told me, he's like, oh, just faith, just acted on faith. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's, I guess, what the lesson I took. Well, come to find out, that wasn't like the first time he had ever like really met her. He had known her for a long time, but that was just their first official date. But thanks for the confidence, President Griffiths. So anyway,
that's amazing.
Well, good times and good people to meet, and it's been fun to reconnect with people. So helped me get together with Matt and Chad recently. I've connected with Elder Level again recently, and I didn't know him super well, but McKay Livingston is one that I'd probably stay in contact with him the most. He was younger than I was, but we always got along super well. But he was he went into the Ireland mission as well. But he told me some crazy about how much he flew back and forth between Ireland and Scotland. It was like 14 times in a matter of 6 weeks or something. It was insane. I was like, I don't know how you did all that. And he did it. I mean, they had to travel alone. So like,
wow.
Like it was just too expensive. Flying back and forth from the islands, but I was just like, man, that would be crazy. So, but he's a good one that, he'd be a good one to have on here. So I think he was in the same group as around Elder Level as well.
Okay.
But
awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, before we get to your shout outs of other people you'd love to have on the podcast, do you have any good memories or just fun moments or even just spiritual moments with President Frederick or President Griffith beyond what you've already shared?
As people were explaining like the weekly letters to President Frederick, I kind of went through the lull of like writing one sentence, of like, yeah, it was a good week. Like, taught a lot of people. Like, I'll write you next week. And I remember him talking to me one time about like, Elder, your letters are a little short. I was like, oh, like again, you actually read those? Like, but that was again, I just wish I would have had more interaction with President Frederick. I just wasn't around him a ton. I do remember one story from President Frederick. I wasn't in the car with him, but I believe it was Elder Nielsen and Blake were the assistants at the time, and they were driving around with President Frederick, and they drove past like a Range Rover dealership, and President Frederick was like, I mean, he does well. He owns Western Explosives, I think is what it's called, and he was talking about Range Rovers. He's like, elders, like, don't ever waste your money on a car like that. It'll break down on you. Like, don't just make sure you're smart with your purchases. And he's telling Elder Blake and Elder Nielsen. And then they were in the car again later with Sister Frederick. And she like leans over and they're driving past the same dealership. And she's like, oh, Tom, those are so cute. Can I get one of those when we get home? And he just like leans over and he's like, yes, dear. And like, I guess Elder Blake and Elder Nielsen are just cracking up in the back of the car. Because he was just telling them how crappy of cars they are. But, Sister Frederick wanted one. So he's like, yes, dear. So funny.
That's awesome.
President Griffith, there's something that he said that I will never forget. And that was when it was probably a zone conference or something, but he had said, elders, and maybe it was in an interview, but it doesn't matter. He just said, when you go home and you're living your life, he said, if you can master one chapter and preach my gospel, it would be chapter 8, which is the time management chapter, how to manage your time. He's a very successful business guy. And that was what his like suggestion and his advice was like, master chapter 8 and you'll become like a master of your life. Just make sure that you really focus on chapter 8 of preach my gospel when you get home. So I thought that was pretty sound advice from him. I do have one more funny story when Elder Holland came. Actually, sorry, can I go back?
Sure.
2 more quick stories. So the 2 apostles that came on my mission were Elder Holland and Elder Bednar. So both, I love listening to both of them speak, but Elder Holland was the first one that came out, and the story has been told about how he interviewed all of us when he shook our hands, whatever. And I remember we get in, we sat down, me and Elder Blake, I was with Elder Blake at the time as my companion, we sit down right in the front row, and Elder Holland leans forward and he grabs my shoulder and he goes, now, Elder, I want you to, just watch out, because when I get worked up, I tend to spit a little bit. And so in the middle of his talk, though, I don't even remember what he was talking about, but he spit and it hit me right on my bottom lip as he was like doing his sermon. And man, I was just like, oh, I'm never washing my lips again. If I could spit fire like Elder Holland, that'd be awesome. So anyway, and then Elder Bednar came later in my mission, and have you guys ever heard him like in a non-formal setting, like general conference? He's amazing. So he goes in and he opens it up to questions to the audience. At least that's what he did with us. And he came to my home stake after I got home from my mission. I wasn't there for it, but I guess he did the same thing there, where he just opened it up to questions to the audience. And I remember one of the questions was asked because my brother at the time was living the night lifestyle, if you will. He's 4 years older than me. So he was, he got himself into a lot of trouble, dealing drugs, doing drugs, alcoholic, anything you can think about. He was doing that stuff. And so one of the questions that was asked from a member was, and this is when I was in Scotland, was, if we have these children that have, strayed away from the gospel, and what can we do to help them? Like, what can we do? Because I'm sure these parents are just like trying everything they possibly can to get their kids to come back to church and whatever. And Elder Bednar was just, his answer was just love them. Just love them no matter what. Like, at some point, you can't change the choices they're going to make, but at some point in their lives, they're going to remember if they felt that you loved them or not, no matter what. And so I always took that lesson of like, I would hope if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, that I'm going to be loved by those around me, no matter what, because when it really comes down to it, that's what you need. You need to just love those around you, like, unconditionally. And so I thought that was awesome advice from an apostle. And Elder Bednar is probably the one that got my brother to come back to the church, because he was at that stake conference meeting at my home ward that my brother went to. And anyway, just got him, had a pulled him aside because they could see that he was just like in hysterics, because he was living that night lifestyle and was probably overcome by the Spirit as he was in that room with Elder Bednar, and feeling the repentance process starting. So anyway, he's doing really good now. Graduated from BYU Idaho, got his life back on track, sealed, married in Temple, 3 kids. Yeah,
good for him.
Good story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell, in a 2-hour nutshell.
No, not 2 hours. We'll trim it down.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You've been awesome, Tyler. Before we let you go, is there anyone, you've named a great list of companions, and I'm looking through, we've talked to one of them. So we need your help.
I know.
We need your help in regards to helping us get in front of them. We love referrals. So definitely let us know. Is there anyone else besides your companions and those you've already mentioned that you'd love to hear from as we continue?
Oof, that's a good question. Peckham was probably one that he's been mentioned several times, but yeah, he stuck out to me in my mission. I never he was my zone leader at one point, but yeah, Elder Peckham would be a cool one to hear from. That wasn't on my list of companions, because I'd love to hear Elder Bear, Blake, Nielsen. Elder Wells would be a good one. Yeah, I mean, they would all be good ones.
Yeah, I agree.
If they'd be willing to talk to you. Some of them I don't think would be willing to talk to you.
The thing that you learn, and this in the world of real estate, if you don't ask, you don't know.
That is very true. Maybe it'll change someone's life.
Exactly. 100%. And honestly, Jack and I have said this many times. This is not a check-in of where you are at in your life. We could care less if you come on with a really skinny ponytail and earrings in every ear or edifice of your face. We don't care. We want you to come and talk to us about your experience in Scotland.
Well, if I didn't have my hoodie on, you guys would see all my tattoos. So
well, there we go. See, who cares? You know? And honestly, that's the biggest thing. We're so grateful that we have this kinship from serving in this amazing land that, how often do you come across another person in your day-to-day life that said they served in the Scotland Edinburgh Mission? I mean,
I don't think I've ever randomly met someone that said they've served in Scotland.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is very few and far between. And, we don't need to say that we're the elect of those that served missions, but we were very fortunate that we were able to serve in that amazing land. So
yeah, I don't think I realized how fortunate I was when I actually got my call. One, of like my family connection, and then two, just the rarity. I mean, I would guarantee my dad was up there screaming, "Scotland, Scotland, Scotland!" Like, just that's where I needed to go. So I don't,
I love
kind of
that.
crazy. Like, I should have worn my kilt. Like, I actually have a family kilt. We're the Graham of Monteath.
Oh
What
my
our
gosh, that's
family
cool.
is. So yeah, we're from the Graham clan.
It's amazing.
So anyway,
I love it. Well, Tyler, we love you, brother. Thank you again for so much of your valuable time, and we will certainly connect more in the future. But like we said, don't be a stranger. Send us messages, send us emails, send us referrals. We love them all. We're excited.
real estate, and Scotland Edinburgh podcast, right?
You got it. We can talk.
Right.
We can talk offline about that for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't need to make this about business. This is about people. So I do appreciate what you guys are doing, though. Like it's a lot of time and a lot of effort for you guys to do this consistently. I mean, I'm like, man, I got to find 2 hours this week to sit down and talk to these guys, and you're doing it all the time. Like it's really awesome that you guys are doing this.
Oh,
thanks.
We appreciate that. I mean, it has been so much fun. I mean,
I'm sure
we're talking to you. You are episode 94 of
awesome.
our conversations, and we still have a list that's like 600 people long, and there's more beyond that we haven't got on the list yet. So it's just a lot of fun.
The sisters that I would I'd like to hear Lori Cook's. She was I loved serving around Sister Cook.
Do you know what
she was awesome?
What her last name is now?
Nope. I can find it. I think
we'll figure it out.
I should be able to find it. Yeah, I'll find it and message you.
Well, that sounds
or
good.
Her.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Tyler. Well, again, thank you for your time. We'll certainly talk more soon, but we love you. We'll say goodnight.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
All right, cheerio.
We'll see you. Bye.
Bye.